Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. I'm going to wait for a few moments as we come online. And thank you for joining us for the Outdoors for All panel and public comment session today. And thank you and welcome. I know we've got a few people coming online here. So thank you for giving a portion of your summer Thursday to spend with us. I'm just gonna wait a minute or two as I see our participants flowing in. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're still getting some folks coming on in. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and start us off. So welcome and thank you for joining us today for the Outdoors for All panel and public comment session. I'm Catherine Toy. I'm the Deputy Secretary for Access at the California Natural Resources Agency, and I will be facilitating our panel and public comment session today. A few logistics first, and that this is a meeting that is being recorded, and next week we will post the video to our YouTube channel for the California Natural Resources Agency. During this meeting, all participants will be muted, but if you need technical assistance during the meeting, please raise your hand. I will also be providing additional instructions for how to do the logistics for our public comment session, but I'll do that prior to our that section of the meeting. So with that, I'm really excited to start us off. So last month, we released the Outdoors for All strategy, and that's a roadmap for how we can build more equitable access to the outdoors for all Californians. We have an exciting panel today of partners and the opportunity after that to provide public comment on the draft strategy. But first, we have a welcome from our Secretary of Natural Resources, Wade Crowfoot. He's sorry he couldn't be here in person today, but wanted to be sure to welcome you.
Thanks so much for joining us in this discussion about Outdoors for All across California. I'm really grateful of the work that my colleague, our Deputy Secretary Catherine Toy, has done to establish this draft plan for this Outdoors for All. Thanks so much for joining us in this discussion about Outdoors for All across California. I'm really grateful of the work that my colleague, our Deputy Secretary Catherine Toy, has done to establish this draft plan for this Outdoors for All initiative, and really appreciative of your willingness to help provide input to help our strategy across state government be as effective as it can be. Now, we know how beautiful California is. We know how world-class our recreational opportunities are. And we also know, if we're joining this conversation, that those opportunities are not equally enjoyed. Across state government, we are working to achieve greater equity of opportunities and outcomes, meaning all Californians have opportunities and can achieve prosperity regardless of their zip codes, their race or ethnicity, their background. And that manifests in the work that we do at the Natural Resources Agency in Outdoors for All. Part of our mission across our agency is to care for these incredible environments across our state and allow Californians to enjoy them. And we recognize quite clearly that the work that we've done over decades, while so positive in many respects, has oftentimes perpetuated this unequal access. And so we're committed to changing that and really infusing this outdoors for all ethos across our work. And that means ensuring that all Californians can get outside and enjoy the outdoors, and importantly, essentially experience all of the benefits of being outdoors, including physical, emotional, and mental health. Now, I'm really proud of the progress we've made in recent years, and certainly over the last 4 years under Governor Newsom. We have so much happening. Our State Department of Parks and Recreation, what we know as state parks, has initiated some remarkably innovative programs, including being able to check out park passes in state libraries, getting fourth graders across the states and their family into state parks for free, reinterpreting the history within our parks so that everybody feels like they belong in our 279 state parks. Other departments are pitching in. Our CAL FIRE is initiating over $100 million of opportunities for urban greening projects. Our state conservancies like the Coastal Conservancy and the Sierra Nevada Conservancy and others are facilitating tribal land back, getting land back into tribal sovereignty, which is long overdue and critically important for this outdoors for all. We have some key funding programs, including the statewide parks program, which is funding capital projects, getting parks into those communities, in some cases without any parks or with not enough parks. State Parks also has the Outdoor Equity Grants program, getting tens of millions of dollars, connecting Californians who don't have access to our parks. At the agency level, we're really proud of the Youth Outdoor Access Grant Program, which is using an innovative source of funding for groups that are getting young people out into nature. So there's tremendous progress, and we're excited about that, and we're trying to build momentum on that progress. We're also trying to institutionalize Outdoors for All so that it's not a passing priority, but a guiding principle of our work across the Natural Resources Agency, across state government into the future. And that's what this initiative is all about. We do not want this strategy simply to be a document that sits on a shelf, and it won't be. Far from that. It's meant to be a framework, really a paradigm shift to ensure that all of the funding that we're spending on the outdoors and recreation, all of the policies and programs and regulations that we're initiating actually have Outdoors for All at its heart. And really that's where you come in. Your input of our draft Outdoors for All strategy is critically important to understand, or to help us understand, what you need across California to actually get this work done. Because at the end of the day, achieving equitable outdoor access, yes, Sacramento leaders can play a role, but this is something that will manifest across the state and be led by community groups and leaders. And really that's where we're coming from. We want Outdoors for All to support your leadership, your work. There's so much important work and advocacy that's happening, really, that got us to this point. So I'll last say thank you for doing the work across California to help people that don't have access to our parks, to our nature, having access. And thanks for pushing us to this point when we're all aligned towards institutionalizing access for all. Best wishes on a very successful, collaborative, candid dialogue here today.
Thank you very much for having a listen to the words of Secretary Crowfoot. I know that he has been such a champion of the outdoor equity work, and really has been essential to our moving this work forward. And one of the things that the Secretary highlighted that I think is so important to emphasize is that the Outdoors for All strategy really charts progress on equitable access to date and highlights work underway and identifies additional actions that we can take to realize the promise of a California for all. That this is work that is building on work that is already happening and work that has come into being because of advocates like so many of you who are tuning in today who have really moved this work forward. So this strategy outlines pathways that government, community organizations, philanthropy, private sector, and residents across California can take to increasing outdoors access and access to nature. We know that building an outdoors for all requires an all hands on deck approach. So today we're excited to hear not only from our own State Parks Director, Armando Quintero, but also from our federal partner, Jim Bacon from the U.S. Forest Service, and a regional partner, Alina Bhakti from LA County Parks. They will be talking about what their departments are doing to advance equitable access, and then we'll be discussing opportunities for alignment and collaboration statewide. I would also like to acknowledge the importance of tribal communities in this process. Our tribal partners are integral to achieving outdoors for all, and we know that by working together, we can further equitable access to the outdoors, preserve tribal cultural practices, and strengthen relationships between the state and tribal nations. CNRA is currently engaging tribes through government-to-government consultations, and we look forward to hosting a future panel focused exclusively on tribal partnerships and outdoors for all. So I hope you've had a chance to read the Outdoors for All draft strategy. And if you haven't, I'd encourage you to do so. It's available on our website, and we'll drop a link to that in the chat. The draft strategy does contain 6 key priorities to achieving outdoors for all. And before we bring up our first panelist, I'd like to highlight those for you. So the 6 outdoors for all priorities are: 1, to establish places for people and nature to thrive by creating and maintaining more high quality outdoor spaces of all shapes and sizes, especially in park limited places. Number 2, to foster belonging in the outdoors through policies and programs that build a welcoming and inclusive culture. Number 3, to connect people and the outdoors by improving information and transportation. 4, to co-create with communities through frequent and meaningful tribal consultation and community engagement with attention to frontline communities. 5, to build equitable career pathways and a representative workforce by improving opportunities for all Californians to enter and sustain outdoor recreation, natural resources, and restoration professions. And 6, to align funding to achieve outdoors for all in partnership with federal, state, and non-governmental agencies. So those are the 6 priorities of Outdoors for All. And I hope again that you can take a look at the full strategy more closely online, and to be able to make comment on that, whether you've signed up today or would like to send us written comment by email or by regular mail before July 18th. So with that, I'd like to begin the panel portion of our session today and bring up our first panelist, Director of California State Parks, Armando Quintero. So hi Armando, welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
To give you a little introduction. So if you don't know Director Quintero, he was named the Director of California State Parks back in August of 2020, and he oversees 280 state park units, over 340 miles of coastline, 970 miles of lake and river frontage, 15,000 campsites, 5,200 miles of trails, and over 3,000 historic buildings. So this is pretty incredible. The department contains the largest and most diverse recreational, national, cultural heritage holdings of any state agency in the nation. So Director Quintero is an experienced park professional with expertise in park operations, outdoor education, equity and access, and diversity, inclusion, and hiring and retention. He's an environmental scientist by training and comes most recently to the state from the University of California, Merced, where he's served as the executive director of the Sierra Nevada Research Institute. But he also spent over 20 years in the National Park Service in many different roles, including at the Golden Gate National Recreation Area, Point Reyes National Seashore, Sequoia National Park, and the John Muir National Historic Site. So welcome, Armando Quintero.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And it's so good to be together in this virtual world. I'll start by saying that I think many of us, certainly me included, we're so fortunate to be involved in the work that we're doing. And I sometimes feel like many of us are getting to do work that we never even dared to imagine or dream that we would be able to do. And that's where we find ourselves today. And what an honor. And it's such a critical thing to be looking at the world. And like all of us, we bring our own experience to the work that we do. And for me, that is what has informed my role in this current iteration of this strange path of careers. And certainly access for all and outdoors for all is something that's been a fundamental interest of mine for many years. And I'll just go right into what we're doing. At state parks, when we first got on board and started talking about things that we could do, we started talking about past programs. And we created three or proposed three, which were the Parks Library Pass. And by working with the legislature, we were able to actually get 33,000 park library passes distributed to all the libraries in California, including tribal libraries. And you can check it out with just your library card. And literally this morning, I stopped by a community library where I used to take my daughters and was talking to the librarians there. And when I walked in, they grabbed the package with the hang tag. Here, I'll show you the hang tag right here.
So cool.
That's the hang tag that you can check out. And they started talking about how popular that item is and how joyful people are in checking that out. And it was so interesting because there's so much that we can learn through these programs. And as I was talking with them, they were saying many of their clients were afraid to go to parks because they didn't know how much it would cost. And they were thinking about expenses like Disneyland and things like that. They didn't know how to how to prepare for food, what kinds of activities there could be. Are they going to get lost? And so the librarians across the state are reporting very similar stories. So the power of this, I think, is really great in many ways. And I'll wrap up with a couple comments on this. We also have something called the Fourth Grade Adventure Pass. Any fourth grader can go online to state parks and type in Fourth Grade Adventure Pass, and they can fill out some information, and they immediately get a pass that will get that fourth grader and their family into 19 parks where we've created special programming for fourth graders and their families. And then the third pass that we've done is called the Golden Bear Pass, which has been available for a number of years. And with the Department of Social Services, people who receive support from the Department of Social Services used to be able to get this pass, but it was very cumbersome. We made it super easy. So this year, 33,000 library passes went out. There's currently almost 30,000 fourth grade adventure passes that are out. And there's almost 40,000 passes that are going out to families who are recipients of social service support.
That's amazing.
It's mind-boggling. And literally in talking with our partners at the libraries and talking to fourth grade families and DSS, people are emotional about realizing that we're delivering a service as a community that is really life-changing for many people. We also have really focused on working with tribes and putting together MOUs that do everything. They vary, but they do everything from allowing unfettered access to ceremonial sites that are in state parks, allows for the collection and the cultivation of traditional plant materials for ceremonial use. We have co-management efforts. So when we're doing fire resiliency work, forest resiliency work, we have tribal members working side by side with us, sharing their knowledge as we go and advance that work, as many other agencies are doing now. And then finally, we have places, well, two things. We have places where tribal members can get into parks and not have to pay a fee. These are their traditional lands, and so they're welcomed into their traditional lands. And then finally, or just one other thing, and that is that there's a park in Southern California next to San Diego Old Town, and it's called Ipe Tipe Kumeyaay Mutnohipak. And what that means is the land of the first people. The entire park has interpretive signs where the language on top of the first language on the signs is Kumeyaay, the second language is Spanish, and the third language is English. And so we're doing a lot of different things with tribes to engage and represent these places as being belonging to everybody, really, and telling everybody's stories. Along with that, we've got an effort called Reexamining Our Past with our cultural resources teams. And we are actually looking at place names. But one of the real exciting things that we're doing there is working in partnership with the California African American Museum. And we got funding so that we can now work in a very focused fashion to illuminate the stories of Black Americans, almost 20 state parks. And we see that as only a beginning and a trend for a much longer term partnership, not just with the California African American Museum, but working with various groups to really make everybody feel or know that these are parks for all. Wade mentioned the state parks program. Those equity grants are phenomenal. They usually are funded by bond funding. And those programs have been managed by state parks since 1968. Billions of dollars have gone into communities that are not state parks, but they've got state parks investments in them. So one of the things that we've tried to do the last few years is really get the word out that you may not have a state park that's close to your home, but community centers, playing fields, and things like that have been funded by state parks. And I'll finish with this.
Well, those are amazing. And I know, oh, go ahead.
Just 3 quick things. One of them is, I think it's really important that we all think about the language that we use when we're talking to the public, because oftentimes we inadvertently use very possessive language as the administrators of these lands. So we'll say our parks, for example, and that doesn't really come across as inclusive. I usually try to say your parks, no matter where I'm talking. Another is that I think we have the opportunity to really spark the imagination of all citizens that, in fact, this is where you live. When you look at any park or a forest area or a river or a coast, this is where you live. And that is another message that I'm trying to get out in the work that we're doing. And so I do think that working together across agencies with our other partners, we can work together on our messaging, which will also help so we can be more consistent and have ideas that resonate for all of us. And I think all of that combined will lead to stronger career and career pathway interest on the part of the public.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Armando. And I know it's tremendously unfair to ask you to distill into 7 or 8 minutes all of the amazing work that State Parks is doing to advance outdoors for all and really make California's nature more accessible to all Californians. And I know it's something that you hold so dearly personal in your heart, and that drives how you do the work. So thank you for that. I know we'll come back to some of that. But next I want to bring up our colleague, Jim Bacon, Director of Public Services for the Pacific Southwest region of the U.S. Forest Service. So a little about Jim. He has 20 years of experience with federal government and is currently serving in his role at the Pacific Southwest region of the Forest Service. And in this capacity oversees public use and access of 18 national forests across California and also provides assistance to the Pacific Islands. But prior to moving to the U.S. Forest Service, he worked for the National Park Service in various capacities, including as superintendent of the National Park of American Samoa and as a project manager and outdoor recreation planner at Yosemite. Jim also served in the Peace Corps for a number of years and has provided technical assistance on assignments in many exciting places, Brazil, Belize, Costa Rica, and more. So welcome, Jim Bacon.
Hey, thank you, Catherine, and just really appreciate the invitation to be part of this discussion today. And to my colleagues, Armando and Alina, it's absolutely just humbled to be on this panel with you all. So thank you for having me. And I want to commend Catherine, you and the state for this effort, right? It truly is meaningful work and timely work, right? We saw in the pandemic significant increases in outdoor recreation participation, not just in California, nationwide. In fact, I just saw some data today indicating that there is some increases in the diversity of participation in recreation nationwide, but we're not quite there yet. The national forests in California, it's comprised almost 20% of the state. We have some 35 million visitors a year. But when we look at the data, of who's coming to our national forest, it doesn't quite match up with the data and the demographics of the state itself, right? So we have work to do, and we really applaud what you're trying to do here. When we looked at the Outdoors for All strategy, it absolutely lines up with everything we're trying to do in the Forest Service, both, I can say fairly, in California and just nationwide. And I'll highlight just a few things we're up to in the Forest Service, and just by way of examples here if I can. But again, we see every one of these 6 priorities within the work we're doing in the Forest Service. I'll highlight first foremost one from priority number 1 and the intent to support deferred maintenance projects, right? Strategy 1.5. The Great American Outdoors Act funding that we received from Congress is a 5-year funding program to multiple agencies, not just the Forest Service, but it's intended to improve our dilapidated infrastructure, which is so sorely needed. And we've put that to good use here in the state of California already. Just in fiscal year 22, we've put $55 million towards 41 different projects across the state, from things like just trail improvements and trailheads for that access to campground improvements, signs, right? As Armando mentioned, just improving signs, those day use and picnic areas and expanding those to meet larger groups and different ethnicities and so on. So very important program. There's very good use of it in our, again, it's a 5-year program. So a number of projects across the state to improve rec infrastructure. Priority number 2 in terms of fostering belonging, and strategy 2.1 in particular, in sharing culturally diverse and relevant and relatable stories. We've recently created a whole team of folks in our regional office here. We call it our storytelling team. It's a team that is developing multimedia films and various content to start bridging the gap, tell the stories of what's so important and special about our national forests and the people that visit them. One such story that recently was produced into a film was about the Chinese railroad workers, right, that worked in and around the railroads in the Tahoe area. So the film is called Legacy. If you have the opportunity to view that, it's a wonderful relation of the Chinese importance in that development. We also have a program, what we call the Blue Waters Initiative. So this is an exchange program with Pacific Island youth, California youth, and a cultural exchange and a mutual understanding of how forest and marine ecology relate to one another. So another program we've been instituting the last few years to kind of bridge that gap as well. Another one under the same priority area, strategy 2.12, in terms of partnerships, community memberships, community-based organizations, working with college universities, we've had a long-standing relationship with Chico State University, among others. But with Chico State, we've worked on a program we call Latinas in Action there. We've had these Latin American female college students going to elementary schools and middle schools, raising awareness of the Forest Service and delivering climate action programs in the schools. So another great program supporting that priority and those strategies. And then the last one I'll just share real quick, Catherine, is priority number 5. Certainly as an agency, I can say, and in our region in particular, really wanting to lean into building a more equitable career pathway and a representative workforce, right? We recognize, especially in California, we need more people that don't look like me necessarily, but look like all of you out there. And so a couple of things I'll mention here. Nationally, we've created what we call the OE team. It's a workforce entry team. So this is a team that is dedicated to recruiting from a diverse talent pool from diverse populations, underserved populations, not only recruiting them into positions as an intake, an early intake to the Forest Service, but making sure they are trained as well. Within Region 5 here in California, we've stood up our own version of that, and we are conducting a number of career fairs throughout the state to bring in, again, more diverse new workers in our organization at various levels and at different functions. And we've created some new tools too. We have some tools on how to develop a federal resume. It's not always easy to navigate the federal application process. We've created a little primer for folks to help them with that. We've got a little video to help them and so on and so forth. And again, we've gone into the communities to get proximate and try to recruit directly from those underserved populations. So again, those are just a few examples, but I could go on all day. There was so many, and we see ourselves in everything you're trying to do, and really, again, commend you on the effort. So thank you.
Yeah, no, Jim, I really appreciate that. And I think one of the highlights, and I was stunned to learn this when I came onto this job, is that the U.S. Forest Service manages 20 million acres in California, which is simply astounding. And so the work that we can get to do together to provide more equitable access for all who are living here or visiting here is truly a tremendous thing to be able to do in partnership. And we count ourselves lucky to have the U.S. Forest Service as good partners. So thank you, and certainly would like to be digging in on some of those strategies also together with you to see how we can advance those shared priorities. So thanks, Jim. We'll be talking again in a little bit, but now I want to bring up our third panelist, Alina Bhakti from the LA County Department of Parks and Recreation. So welcome, Alina. And just a little background about Alina. She was appointed Chief Deputy Director of the County of Los Angeles Park and Recreation Department in the end of 2020. And in her role, she's responsible for the department's day-to-day operations of 183 facilities and an annual budget of more than $243 million, 2,100 employees, and 5,000 plus registered volunteers. That's a lot, and that's a big park system in LA County. So prior to her role, Alina was working with the department, the Planning and Development Agency for the department, and oversaw the planning, environmental permitting, land management, and so forth for their facilities and trails that spanned over 70,000 acres in Los Angeles. And one more thing about Alina, another tie between her and the state is that she was appointed by Governor Brown to the statewide Wildlife Conservation Board in 2018, and she now serves as the chair of the Wildlife Conservation Board. So welcome, Alina.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you for the opportunity to join the wonderful panel today, and look forward to our conversation, and just congratulations on getting to the stage of releasing the Outdoor for All strategy. So
thank you. I think we've got some slides of yours.
Great.
Here they come.
Yes, thank you. So I want to spend my few minutes talking about some exciting work that we're doing and have done at the County of Los Angeles Parks and Recreation regarding our 30 by 30 plan, or what we call our P&A Plus, which is the Park Needs Assessment Plus. So next slide. So this is a picture to show we want to celebrate our moments of success. And so on December 6th of 2022, our Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors unanimously adopted our 2022 Park Needs Assessment Plus, our P&A Plus. And this really is our 30 by 30 vision for Los Angeles County. Which is focused on environmental conservation, restoration, regional recreation, and rural recreation. The P&A Plus builds upon and supplements our 2016 Park Needs Assessment, utilizing our data, mapping, analysis, and recommendations that, again, really focus on land conservation and restoration. I do want to just say that our P&A Plus was supported by a very diverse coalition, and you see some of those folks here in the picture, of countywide community-based organizations that stem both from park and open space, biodiversity, and climate change advocates. So next slide. So here you'll see some of our maps of that really inform the P&A Plus. So the P&A Plus identifies areas that offer the most environmental benefits and those that have the most environmental burdens. So what we looked at in terms of the kind of the map to your left, environmental benefits are the most concentrated areas that, again, really lift up species diversity, significant habitat, connectivity, and habitat type. And so you'll see some of the dark green areas are places like the Santa Monica Mountains, some areas in the Antelope Valley, and the bottom left there, Catalina Island. When we looked at environmental burdens and defining those, we looked at areas where they're, again, really concentrated areas that include indicators of hazardous waste, poor air and water quality, as well as pollution burden levels. We also, along with looking at these data points, we also really wanted to talk about and highlight vulnerable areas using indicators of social barriers like poverty and unemployment, transportation barriers like limited access to public transit and automobile, health vulnerability like reduced life expectancy at birth, environmental vulnerability like excessive heat days and limited tree canopy, or what we call shade equity, addressing shade equity. And so again, you'll see if you were to look at our 2016 park needs assessment, there's a lot of correlation between the areas where our highest park need areas and also where we have some of the largest vulnerable areas in our P&A plus. And in fact, if you were to kind of take in some examples on the right that again show where some of the darker areas include lower income communities and communities of color, large portions, for example, of East Los Angeles and South LA here in LA County. Next slide. So the P&A plus for us like really goes beyond, some of the framing of both the state and federal 30 by 30 initiatives. We really wanted to lift up issues of environmental justice. And so while there is certainly a need to conserve natural lands, we wanted to, in our framework here for our 30 by 30 P&A plus, the restoration of degraded lands is significant and an important opportunity. In Los Angeles County, we have numerous underserved communities that are, again, plagued with these environmental burdens, or what we call our frontline communities. So our P&A plus identifies both priority areas, as you can see in the map here, for traditional conservation, as well as priority areas for restoration. And so the traditional conservation is kind of on the left side. The right side shows the areas for priority areas for restoration. So again, what are some of the areas for the traditional areas would be acquisition, traditional conservation would be acquisition, protection of natural lands. And restoration, we're looking at areas that are brownfield sites, landfills, oil fields. Again, many of these sites located in low-income communities of color where vulnerable populations and environmental burdens are concentrated. Next slide. To underscore that, at least in the County of Los Angeles, 84% of the population living in the priorities of restoration are people of color. And so again, our focus for P&A Plus focuses on the most vulnerable residents living in park poor, also tree poor communities across the county. And next slide. So to connect with the Outdoor for All strategy, we think there's a lot of interconnection and correlation, specifically on a lot of the focus around equity and environmental justice. So as similar to the P&A Plus, the Outdoors for All strategy includes the strategies to expand efforts to restore degraded lands to benefit the frontline communities. And I think we wanted to lift up two in the plan, the 1.41 and 1.83. And so again, as you move through this process, we're very excited to continue to partner with the state in really advancing park equity goals and to really meet the needs of our residents, especially in our most vulnerable communities. And policies like the P&A Plus, the Outdoor for All strategy, are key to ensuring that we are working together at all levels of government to address the climate crisis, build resilience, and protect our 30% of lands and waters by 2030. So thank you, Catherine.
Thank
Be able
you
to
so
share
much.
a little bit of our work on P&A Plus.
Yeah, no, it is remarkable work, and certainly a role model, I think, for us all to look to. And it was so, I think, just affirming to see how much our work just channels together. And so to me, I think that's a tremendous good sign for all of the work that we have collaboratively to do together. So I'd like to invite all of our panelists to be back on screen with us and to see if now we're talking, we've got state, local, federal, and together, manage so much of the parks and open space that Californians enjoy. we heard so much about the tremendous work that each of your departments is doing, and know that that's also just a smidgen of the work that you have, which is so large. One of the things that struck me is that you all talked very much about working with communities, whether it was in, how extensively, Alina, you worked with communities to design PNA Plus, or, Armando talking about both partnerships with communities on the ground in each of your park units versus also partnering with greater organizations like the California African American Museum to really tell a more extensive and thorough story at our state parks. And Jim, you're looking at all the different recreationalists who are coming to the vast US forest lands and really seeing how different they all are. So I imagine that, this work that you've done, you've learned a lot over the years, as we all have, as how that comes together. And we know there's also more work that we're still all doing and learning as we go about doing outdoor equity work. Is there some areas of this that you're just starting to lean into with your departments? And how might we work together to collaborate more on that across the state from our different local, federal, and state vantage points? I wonder if you have any thoughts about that.
I can offer something, Catherine, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that we're starting to try to lean into a little bit is just understanding what it is we don't know. We collect data about our visitors all the time, but it's very basic data about the people that actually come to the forest. We don't study the people that don't and why they don't and what those barriers are. We finally have a research effort underway with our Pacific Southwest Research Station in Southern California, looking at just what are those impediments to access and how are people displaced from accessing their national forest. But this is a space that we're all trying to study. I appreciate in Alina's presentation, they've done some of that data and analysis and work to figure out just how does what they're trying to provide by way of access relate to those communities. And I think sharing data and information is a space we can all step into and lean into a little bit more together.
Yeah, for sure. And Alina, when you were doing your studies, that information and what you have there with the PNA Plus is very data rich. And I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine, and Jim, appreciate your comments. Data, I think the work that we do in developing any plan is we absolutely start from a place of data, but it has to be informed by the community and by our partners kind of working on the ground with our department. And so it's critical that we kind of look at processes where we merge the two. And so even though we look at data, also what can we, in pulling all of this data, how can we also make it accessible and available to organizations, to other agencies who may not have the ability to, the resources to pull all this kind of data together to help really lift up and build the narrative of what's happening, in the community around access to, parks and open space and nature or degraded lands. And so I'm really excited that as part of the work for both with the 2016 Park Needs Assessment as well as the PNA Plus, we actually developed a website where organizations, partners, agencies could get access to all of the data to be able to, again, support efforts and partnerships of how to advance projects, advance policy, and be able to use data to help support that work. And so I think it's really important, like, as Jim said, I think we want to continue to, lean into the data, but again, how is the data informing the work that's happening on the ground that really at the end of the day, CBOs, community members have to inform the policy and the strategy and the programs moving forward. And so it's just a tool for conversation and really lifting up the narrative. And so I think, for us, we really look at making sure we're integrating data with community voice.
I feel like that's one of the key questions and about how we are co-creating with communities, which is one of the strategies of Outdoors for All, which is data is certainly very helpful and telling. And it's not data alone. It's a starting point. It's a tool. And Armando, that makes me think of a program you mentioned in your remarks, which is, of course, the statewide parks program, and the tools that state parks has to determine where the biggest areas of need are for new parks and open space across the state, and the way that that program engages communities.
Well, and one thing that I'll say is that our grants team, when they get an inquiry or an application that has a really powerful impact, oftentimes it's the least resourced communities that are in the most need. So what our grants team does is they'll contact that community and help them with their application to make it as competitive as possible. So this isn't like an exam where you answer the questions and then it disappears. We work with communities, and I have witnessed and gone to projects that have now been built and that are amazing. And the other thing is that the requirement of those grants is that these projects get designed by the community. This isn't a program where you have an outside planner come in and say, here's the park for you. And some of the most amazing testimony that I've heard, I mean, a favorite quick story is this planner told us that there was a young 8-year-old girl who would become an avid skateboarder, and she designed an element for the proposed state park called the Twinkie. When they got their funding, her Twinkie got built. And actually the governor, I was talking with the governor and his Jennifer, the first partner, and the governor said, what do you think that 8-year-old is going to be like when she's 18? And the first partner said, she's going to be able to do whatever she wants. So, I mean, the way that we manage these programs for community, for each other, is massive in terms of creating Outdoors for All.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that I hear coming up also across our various departments within the agency is as we move forward and are increasingly learning more and more about how we work better to have communities sit at the table with us to design what they need to see, not what we need them to see, is that, there's I think we all struggle a little bit with capacity building. How do we best provide capacity building for organizations to and communities to really participate? So I don't know if you all have any learnings from engaging with thinking about that in your departments, or thoughts about how that might be moving forward in your departments, how we are working with communities and helping to build capacity so we can really be sitting down together at the same table.
I'll jump in, Catherine. So I think one of the things that, lots of things obviously happened and changed during COVID, but for us, one of the things that I think we've integrated into our community engagement process is virtual meetings, to be able to do things in person, but also virtually. And we've found some real success in being able to engage more of our residents in processes through a virtual platform, knowing that that's not the only, approach. We're very committed to making sure that there are multiple ways, that we're reaching out, not only in the approaches or methods, but also making sure that accessible with language and linguistically accessible to communities. I think one of the things in terms of really thinking about capacity building as well. So, for example, as I just mentioned, we want to make sure if we have access to data that we're sharing that out and not, charging a price or anything to do that, but to be able to share data again to help. And then, where we can again engage organizations to support outreach into communities, that we're looking at ways that we can bring financial resources to the table as well to support, because we know, it's it's work that is very valued and needs to be valued, what CBOs, community-based organizations bring to the table in terms of their membership and being able to, engage the community also on the ground. And so I think those are for us, like, some things that we found both on a virtual platform, but also, where we can partner with community-based organizations in our efforts, has been also really, really critical. But just trying to make as many, of our resources available as well to kind of support different efforts.
Oh, for sure. Jim, I saw you come off mute there.
Yeah, I was going to offer, I agree with Lena, and I think just working together and collaboratively, we don't do anything alone anymore, especially in the recreation space, right? And so I think going into communities, and I really appreciated that comment earlier, just getting in the community and driving kind of what we do there based on what the people want there, right? And I think that proximity matters, and the teaming up and collaboration really helps us all make a better, more collective impact, right? Quite obviously. There's a number, we were just with you, I think in the La Sierra here a month or so ago, right? With Secretary Crowfoot as well. And it just, that's the kind of projects that we see up and down the state are successful. Take, for example, our trail networks. Our trail systems that are successful are generated by and curated, I'll say, by the community. They're the ones that identify the routes and the spaces they want to play in, not us. We're there to just help collaborate and facilitate it happening. And so it's more of that kind of thing. I think the upfront planning and aligning our efforts so we can take a federal dollar, a state dollar, a local dollar, put them to good use in the places that matter at the time it matters most, is what are some of our challenges for us. And that's why I think we need to start kind of community-based planning and mapping of opportunities. So there's that continuity of recreation opportunity and access is what I see moving forward for us.
There's a really wonderful statement about the paths that people want. And there's a book by Barry Lopez called Home Ground. It has all these landscape planning phrases. And the term for what somebody wants is literally called a desire path. And as you were just talking, Jim, what I heard you saying is that we seek to match desire paths with what we're doing. Is awesome.
I love that language. And talking about desired paths, one of the other things I want to reflect on is, Jim, is something that you mentioned as a priority that the U.S. Forest Service really saw a lot of alignment with, and Outdoors for All, and that was around the career pathways. And Director Quintero, I know that career pathways is something very, very close to your heart. And, here at the state, we're certainly seeing already this silver tsunami of retirements coming in state service. I imagine it's the same in federal service. And, what is the work we're doing to really both have a workforce that is more reflective of California, so people feel welcome when they see who's welcoming them to spaces, who's making decisions about these spaces, etc. And so I wonder, where are some of the work that you're all doing around career pathways that you're most excited about? And do you think that, do you see areas that we can all work together on? Because I think we're all facing the same both desire, that a desired pathway for us to create into our workforces. And maybe Director Quintero, I'll start with you because I know how meaningful this particular aspect is to you.
I mean, I think it's critical to have recruiters who actually can guide and act as headhunters for potential applicants or for applicants, really somebody who can coach you through the process. Because I know Jim knows from his federal background, but Alina, I'm not sure the kind of experience that you've had relative to the very specific wording and the very careful ways in which you have to qualify and quantify your experience and how you read job announcements and how you match your application to those things. All those things matter. So getting a team that can really provide access to the public. And as you know, Catherine, we are now opening a walk-in recruitment center at the Resources Building 2 days a week, and it's multiple agencies. And so people can walk in, and if they have no resume, they'll get one going just by walking in and talking with the team. So we have to provide support like that. I also think that we need to be paying attention to our internal skills and career development. And that's something that I've worked on in the past, and it's something we're doing at state parks now, where any employee who wishes to move up through the organization can work with someone to coach them. Because as we know, most organizations, it sort of happens mysteriously that you get opportunities for shadow assignments and developmental assignments. But if you have a team in personnel that's providing, in essence, the same recruitment support for internal employees, I think it's a morale booster. And it also helps people choose what they're doing as opposed to perhaps feeling locked into something that they're in. And anyway, I'll stop there.
Yeah, that's tremendous. And Jim, with the Forest Service, what are you all looking at in terms of thinking of, how are you thinking about those career pathways?
Oh, similar. And I think, I think where we've trying to shift more recently, just getting into the community. We literally have gone in and created these job fairs where we'll have desks, people sitting down with laptops, and we'll walk people through the application process. This is what you got to be thinking about. As Armando points out, it's challenging. We've got videos and how-tos. We'll do some resume building workshops with folks. I think getting into the schools, getting into the universities and colleges is another way to really help us. There's a number of programs with federal service. We use what's called the Pathways program. Internships are a key way to just expose people. And you've got these captured audiences in these institutions, in these schools and colleges and universities, but you've got to go get out there. And I think that proximity is huge to what we're doing. And the more we can do that, and again, I like this CNRA recruitment center, right? That's multi-agency. It's that kind of thing where we all team up together because we all need them. And we all need them to do similar things, right? If they're helping us manage a visitor center in the state parks, or they're managing a visitor center on the National Forest, or in the community in Los Angeles, it's that kind of stuff we need to do more of and get proximate to the people directly.
Yeah. So, and I know that question, I'm sure, Alina, is very relevant to you with your workforce of over 2,000 employees just for Los Angeles County Parks.
Yeah, when you posed the question, a couple things, came to mind. We have a very strong partnerships with the Conservation Corps to help support many of our projects, but we're working with the Conservation Corps actually to help develop and establish even different certification programs, utilizing our parks as a way to be able to get access to the skill building education that could help with other jobs, for example, tree trimming. So this is something that, given the number of trees that we manage at, as part of our park system, this is an opportunity again to partner and hopefully help build a career pathway. We also, this summer alone, we have hired right now over 350 youth through what we call our Youth at Work program locally to bring youth into our parks to support our programs at the parks. And for us, it's critical that we hire locally and offer those opportunities to be able to then, begin kind of, climbing that ladder. And so we actually went and established a new classification within our department that we call the Park Aide, which after, the thinking is that after Youth at Work, they can apply to become a Park Aide, which is, again, a seasonal job with our department, but again, continues to build the capacity and hopefully interest to go into permanent positions within, maybe not just within Parks and Recreation, but within the county and state and federal. So, but we're very committed again to looking at both through our Youth at Work, our Conservation Corps programs, how can we continue to support and build those partnerships to make opportunities available. We have another exciting program where we partnered with the Conservation Corps to be able to bring some of the Conservation Corps members into our grounds maintenance positions. And so there are ways that we're looking at, connecting with our partners into, jobs within the department, because we're very committed to making sure that we're, again, hiring locally to support the programs and activities at our park. So.
And I think, that I'm glad you mentioned the corps, and certainly we have the California Conservation Corps under the Natural Resources Agency, which has been a tremendous pathway into a lot of our jobs and those I imagine at county and federal jobs as well as the many local corps that exist across the state. And I think, you're talking about partnership. There is how do we all partner with youth programs who have job training and with the corps, local and state, et cetera, with AmeriCorps programs that can provide such pathways. And then, as Director Quintero was saying, how are we maintaining those careers and supporting people to continue to stay with us and to grow in the ways that they want to grow? And I think that, of course, is equally as important. Well, my friends, the time, as we knew, would go by so quickly as it is now the next hour. But I hope that this is just the beginning of many conversations that we would all have together as local, state, and federal partners who are all working toward equitable outdoor access and have much to collaborate around and to further this work together. So I know this was just a teaser of a conversation that we can all continue to have together as we advance this work. So I just want to say thank you again to Alina Bhakti, Jim Bacon, and Armando Quintero for joining us today. And we will see you certainly in maybe another panel and continued discussion. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine.
And with that, we are going to be moving to our public comment portion of this meeting. And I would like to take a 5-minute break. So those of you who are listening can stand up and stretch, and we can do a little behind the scenes prep for the public comment portion that is coming up next. So it is now 2:03, so we will be back at 2:08 to begin the public comment portion. Thank you. Thank you again for waiting. We are just in a 5-minute break. We've got 2 or 3 minutes left, and we'll come back online to do the public comment portion. Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for waiting, and I hope you got a good stretch in or a glass of water. As we're about to begin in another minute or so, the public comment portion of the Outdoors for All meeting. Okay, thank you so much for staying with us to participate or listen in to the next portion of the Outdoors for All panel and public comment session. We are beginning this public comment session, and before we do so, I just want to thank you in advance for all of you who are providing public comment today or who have already provided or will provide comment in writing. Public participation itself is a key component of Outdoors for All. You know, we began this strategy in 2021, actually, with input that was gathered from stakeholder engagement process in our 30 by 30 initiative. And we deepened that engagement last year with 6 regional community workshops and 1 virtual community workshop. In addition, we held early tribal listening sessions and individual early tribal consultations. So we're now in the middle of the public comment period on the draft strategy, and we're also engaging in another round of tribal listening sessions and tribal consultations. So this work, again, is really based on hard work and advocacy that so many of you over many years have put forward into really moving this work and highlighting this work of equitable outdoor access. So please know that your comments are very welcome and they will strengthen this draft, and I look forward to hearing from you. So a little bit on the logistics side. There we had a free registration to provide public comment today. And so what we'll bring up is a slide with your names in groups of 5. I will read those 5 names so you will know when your group is up. So when you see your name on the screen and hear your name called, please use the raise hand button, which will allow us to find you in the audience and give you permission to speak. If you are on the phone, please press #2 to raise your hand. When it's your turn to speak, I will call your name individually. Please wait to be acknowledged, and please make sure that you have unmuted. If you are on the phone, you can press *6 to unmute. You will then have 2 minutes to speak. The timer on the screen will count down your time so that you know when your 2 minutes are up. So I also want to say thank you to my assistants behind the screen, Kim Arbuckle and Kimberly Guo, who are helping to manage all the wonder behind the screens. So let's go ahead, Kim, and move to the next slide that will show the first group of participants up. And so I'm not sure that everybody has the who signed up is here, but we will go through the names in this order. So our first commenter we have today is Connie Arnold. Do we have Connie Arnold on? Okay. Let's see. Connie, if you are on, you can speak. I think Connie is not here. So we will go to Andrew Burrows. And let's see, do we have Mary Buxton? Not currently online. Christy Clace or Laura Cohen?
Hi, this is Laura. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Laura, please begin. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm Laura Cohen. I'm the Western Region Director of Rails to Trails Conservancy, and I also chair a large coalition in the Bay Area called the Bay Area Trails Collaborative, working to implement a 2,700-mile regional trail network. I want to thank you for the opportunity to comment. We also do plan to send a letter with more extensive comments, but I just wanted to start by just commending the administration for prioritizing equitable access. We're so glad you're working on this. We were very impressed with the draft document. We thought it was very thoughtful and inclusive. We love the emphasis on multi-benefit infrastructure. I think that's so important to look for every opportunity when we're investing in green infrastructure or adaptation, moving roads, where that we look for access to add to those projects. We also appreciate the recognition in priority 6 that it's going to take funding to implement this, so that this isn't just a plan with some great ideas that never without being able to make them reality. So one thing we wanted to suggest is kind of a carpe diem, is that there are resource bond measures working through the legislature right now. And it would be a huge missed opportunity if we don't make sure that they maximize equitable access in their provisions. The Assembly bill has some provisions on that. The Senate bill, not very much. So we would just encourage the administration to make it a priority to engage right away with the legislature to shape those measures so that we can really take advantage of having that funding help implement the Outdoors for All principles. We think that just be really important. Thanks very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laura. Very much appreciate your comments. Our next slide will bring up the next page. And my understanding is behind the scenes, these are the next folks who had signed up. My understanding that the first person who is here is Amy Granat. Amy, you can unmute and begin your public comment.
Thank you. Amy Granite. I'm the managing director of the California Off-Road Vehicle Association. I'm also on the board of directors of the California Outdoor Recreation Foundation, which has a partnership with California State Parks and the Off-Highway Motor Vehicle Recreation Division. There are a lot of great aspirational goals in the document. Thank you for the couple of representations for off-road vehicles that are in the document. However, we were not consulted. No one spoke to us. No one reached out to us. There are approximately anywhere from 15 to 20 million off-roaders of all kinds, anywhere from disabled people like me who depend on off-road vehicles to the most adorable little kids and their dirt bikes and who go to our parks. We are possibly on the precipice to lose one of our most popular state parks, Oceano Dunes State Vehicular Recreation Area. And we've seen little to no support from the Natural Resources Agency to keep our park, and yet it is one of the top 10 most visited parks out of all 281 state parks throughout California. We would like more support. We deserve more support, and we are multiple use. We supply access to non-motorized activities as well as access to motorized activities, and we are considered a world-class destination for so many different aspects in the wide variety of sports. So please contact us. We're available. We want to help, and we want to help implement Outdoors for All draft strategy as well when it comes to on-the-ground implementation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. Very much appreciate your comments. And I just want to make sure we do not have Gabrielle, Sonia, or Heidi or Sean online. I think we don't see them behind the scenes. Okay, so the next page of our slides. I believe we have online Alejo Kraus Polk. You may unmute to begin public comment. I believe we have online Alejo Kraus Polk. If you're
Hello?
on, yes, you
Yeah.
may begin your public comment.
Apologies, I did not prepare public comment. I'm just listening in. Thank you.
Oh,
though.
okay. Yeah, thank you so much. We have Patrick Maloney next, available to speak online. You may unmute and begin public comment.
Hi, I'm Patrick Maloney, and I'm a fisheries biologist with the Turlock and Modesto irrigation districts. I'm also a registered professional forester and archaeologist in the state of California, and I've worked in our national park system here, Kings Canyon and Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado, and have spent most of my life outdoors. And presently, I teach over 60 classrooms, the Salmonids in the classroom program, where I teach them flood control, irrigation, hydroelectric generation, of course, habitat of salmonids. And I see so many inner city kids in my program that really want to get up to the mountains or to the beach, and their teachers do too, and they just don't have the funding to do it. So I think on your draft strategy, number 3, transportation, connecting people to the outdoors is a must. We've got to get buses to these schools so that these kids can get out and see what's out there. And I think that leads into building equitable career paths. So many of these children that I see in the inner city communities have no idea what jobs are up in the mountains, what jobs are in the hills, even in their local areas, much less towards the coast. Many of them have no idea which way the mountains are, which way the ocean is, and what kinds of jobs are out there for them in those types of environments. And I really have a passion for showing that to them. And I think we need funding and transportation for these schools that just don't have it.
Thank
That's
you
all I
very much. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate your public comment. Now, my understanding is that Marvin Norman and Rachel Pringle are not online at the moment, so we'll move to the next page of public comment, folks. And my understanding of this group, we have Sharon Sand online. So Sharon, you may unmute to begin your public comment. Do we have Sharon Sand online? I am going to move on to Richard Scaff, and if Sharon comes back, we will make another call. So Richard, you may unmute and begin public comment.
Thank you. I had written questions and sent them to you. My name is Richard Scaff. I'm the executive director of a California 501c3 called Designing Accessible Communities. I was with the city of San Francisco after leaving a restaurant business in 3 positions: building official, enforcing California access requirements, ADA coordinator for public works, and I opened the mayor's office on disability for Willie Brown. Again, I was on 3 of the U.S. Access Board advisory committees. Relative to today's meeting was my participation on the Recreation Committee, looking at issues of gangways and boat docks and camping and trails, etc. I am now working with the California or the Great Redwood Trail to create accessible, a fully accessible trail, probably one of the few very long trails in the US that is going to be fully accessible. I am a bit, oh, by the way, I also wrote the very first California State Parks access codes or guidelines for access. I'm really put off by this event today and the lack of discussion about the last group that has received almost no access to programs, facilities, trails by any of the organizations. It is as if we don't exist. And even today, not one of the speakers talking about, I think, minority community, low income, very important, older people. I'm both a person with a disability and older person. but I'm appalled that there has been no major effort that I can see by anyone. We have state parks that has cabins that are inaccessible.
Thank you
Catherine,
very
you're
much,
muted.
Richard, for your comments and very much appreciate that and understand that you've also, as you mentioned, written some comments online. So thank you very much for sending those. Our next commenter available is Jazari Taylor. Jazari, you may unmute and begin your public comment.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to provide comments. My name is Jazari Taylor, and I'm here today as a chair and representative of the California Parks Now Coalition. Parks Now is a coalition of over 30 individuals and organizations from across California committed to public health, social and environmental justice, and will believe that access to parks, the coast, and public lands is fundamental to healthy, vibrant communities. We have been strong supporters of the Outdoors for All initiatives and thank the Resource Agency for its work developing the draft and implementation strategy, engaging communities, and arranging this workshop. We appreciate the recognition in the draft strategy that the voices and stories of Black, Indigenous, people of color, and other marginalized groups have been historically excluded. However, Parks Now notes a lack of clarity surrounding how objectives outlined in the draft strategy will be achieved. And we are concerned that it fails to articulate a tangible implementation plan with measurable and forward-looking goals. We also question whether the goals outlined in the plan can be achieved without dedicated funding. And while we encourage new resources be provided for Outdoors for All, we also suggest that the agency more thoroughly explore opportunities to align existing resources and capacity within its various agencies and departments towards the advancement of Outdoors for All as directed by AB 30. Parks Now is committed to supporting the Resources Agency in this endeavor and will be submitting a letter outlining more specific comments and recommendations on the draft strategy, but appreciate this initial opportunity to provide our feedback. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jazari Taylor. And I think I will next see that we had Sharon Sand online, and we see in the audience, so want to give that Sharon an opportunity to unmute and provide public comment.
Hi, this is Sharon. Thanks so much. I would like to share my time with Rico Mastrodonato, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Rico, please, if we've found Rico in the audience, if you can unmute. Okay, Rico, you can go ahead.
Oh.
Rico Mastrodonato, please go ahead.
I can't do it.
You're on.
Oh, I'm on. Okay. Oh, God, help us. First of all, I want to thank the department and Catherine, especially you. I mean, I've read the draft strategy several times. It's extremely thoughtful, and I really don't have, big things to say about what I want changed in the strategy. But I share Jazari's concern and other people's concern that this is going to be a great plan with no money. And you guys talk about community building and access to nature, and you have the best competitive grant program in the Resources Agency with the community state parks, the local parks and community revitalization program, which, as you mentioned, Catherine, I believe, has done so much to give communities the answer to the test that they need to get their park built. But what happens is these very low income communities put their heart and soul into an application that is competitive and should be funded, and there's no money. If we don't have we can't rely on bonds, we can't rely on surpluses. And the thing that, I know it's a tough nut to crack, but the only way we're going to get there, taking kids to, Muir Woods or out in the wild, or most importantly, make parks available within walking distance. The only way we're going to do it is to have dedicated, reliable, robust funding. And there's nothing in the plan or discussion in the panel that address that. So, I really appreciate you very much and your plan, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Rico. Appreciate your comments. I believe Sophia is not here, but on the next slide, we'll see the next set of folks. Mike Vanderman, you may unmute to provide your public comment.
Thank you very much. Interesting that we're talking about money. I have money for you in the sense that all of what I'm going to ask for will actually save money. I started an organization called the Machine Free Trails Association. Having machinery on the trails drives hikers and equestrians away. And, they're dangerous, especially mountain bikes. So I'm advocating removing all machinery except for, of course, wheelchairs from the trails to make the trails more welcoming, more accessible to everyone. Second, 30 by 30 is extremely important. Preserving wildlife habitat. The basis of it is we need to protect more habitat, not less. And that means, that includes stop building trails. Building trails destroys wildlife habitat. And not only just destroys habitat, but it fragments habitat and makes wild animals feel unwelcome in their own habitat, and they want to go somewhere else if there is anywhere else to go. So I'm advocating removing vehicles from trails, all kinds of vehicles except for wheelchairs for the disabled, and stop destroying habitat. We have plenty of trails already, and we shouldn't build any more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for your comments. My understanding is that Nina is not in the audience. So what I would like to do next is we have some time to take unregistered public comment. So this is for anyone who did not register in advance, but who would like to provide public comment today and who has not already spoken. So if that applies to you, we'd love to hear from you. Please raise your hand or press #2 if you are on the phone. So right now, I think we've got a few hands raised of folks who are here today and would like to provide public comment, but who haven't already spoken. And I think I see online, do I have Matisa Shangiri? You may unmute and provide public comment. We have Matisa Shangiri. Okay, I am going to move to the next. Do I have Dee Holokai who would like to provide public comment?
Hi there, this is Diana Kahi. I'm calling in from Solano Land Trust. I am the engagement specialist and also on behalf of our Explore Solano community with the Outer Spatial app and partners with the Committee of Land and People. We got tons of our agencies and community leaders as a part of a committee that we hold. And I just wanted to provide just a comment of gratitude and just really grateful for this document, this draft, because for the Committee of Land and People, we have a similar goal of having 100% youth outdoors. And we have completed a gap analysis to show some of the areas in our county that have not been served and who are, for lack of better terms, just highest priority to be reached and need access to outdoor education and some resources towards the benefits of being outside. So this kind of document is going to be really helpful. So we're really excited for the implementation phase. And we just kind of chiming in with everybody, the funding part of it, I think, is what we're all thinking about as well, because that's something that in the phase that we're in as well with our 100% youth outdoors focus. So thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you very much for sharing, Dee. And with that, I'm just checking to see if we have any more participants who've raised their hand. And I think I still see Matisa hand up. And if you would like to come off mute and provide public comment. That could be an unintentional hand raise, which I do sometimes as well. So what I will do then, that concludes, we have no more speakers to provide public comment today, and that will conclude then our meeting. However, I still want to make sure that you know that we are accepting public comment on this draft strategy through July 18th. And you can provide public comment by emailing outdoors@resources.ca.gov, or you can provide the old-fashioned mail to the California Natural Resources Agency, attention Outdoors for All. Our address is at 715 P Street, Sacramento, California, 95814. And we'll put both of those addresses in chat. And with that, I'm just going to pause a moment because I see that Matisa Jahangiri is still trying to raise your hand. And so I want to make sure, it could be that, so you need to make sure that you come off mute. If you're on the phone, make sure you press *6. Do we have Matisa?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, this is not Matisa, but I am calling in along with her. This is Mary Buxton. We've all been having big troubles unmuting from our computer and our phone.
Oh, goodness.
So it might have happened to a lot of people because I see there were a lot of no-shows. So I'm not quite sure what Matisa was going to say, but we did both know we were going to be here today. I am with the Sierra Club Loma Prieta chapter, and I'm the 30 by 30 task force coordinator. So I meet once a month with all 13 chapters and have been doing this for 2.5 years. So I know that the Sierra Club is totally behind Outdoors for All, environmental justice, and just having things be fair with access to nature. So I appreciate the report, and I appreciate this webinar, and just wanted to say how much we support this idea. There are still, however, a lot of questions about how the strategy will be implemented, funded, and aligned with the 30 by 30 process. I did really like the things I heard earlier about community-based planning, that great story about that skateboarder I mean, what an empowering thing. And then the job support, all of that that you described sounded super practical and, you know, reducing barriers to entry for people to find meaningful careers, which we'll need those people soon. That's my comment. I'm so glad I got on to talk. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad that you were able to get on public comment as well. We did have a number of people pre-registered who then did not appear online. So I think the only person we saw that was actually here but didn't have their hand raised and had their hand raised was Matisa. So I think we still see, oh, nope, that's it. Okay, we have no more hands raised. So with that, I would like to remind everyone that they can have public comment through July 18th, and we've got those addresses and the places where you can do that in the chat. In addition, if you would like to keep up to date on the latest about the Outdoors for All initiative, we encourage you to join our email list, and we'll also drop that email or the link where you can sign up into the chat. And before we leave today, I just want to say a special thank you to my behind the scenes colleagues who joined me this afternoon, to Kim Arbuckle from the Natural Resources Agency and to Kim Guo from Better World Group. Thank you for maneuvering all these things behind the scenes. These days I find myself trying to share slides being like patting my head and rubbing my stomach at the same time. It doesn't often work well for me. So thank you so much to my behind the scenes partners. So thanks everyone for joining us today and for your interest and your commitment into building an Outdoors for All. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.